everybody, my name is Hiragi Dion and welcome back to Higurashi. So, that stuff happened with Reina last time where she was apparently listening in on my conversations somehow. It's weird. Weariness and headache. Not a very nice way to start the day. What's wrong? Keichi, you don't look so well. When did you go to sleep? It seemed that my mom had noticed my sullen state. Yesterday, I kept on waking up in the middle of the night. Without a doubt, I felt a presence. I felt the presence of someone standing in front of my door. I told myself repeatedly that it was my imagination and forced myself to try and sleep. Except not being able to stand it, I gathered my courage and opened the door. Of course, there wasn't anyone there. I think I did this 3 times throughout the night. Maybe I just didn't remember doing it any more than that. Even though I was able to get to the breakfast table without incident, I still didn't feel at ease. It might be a cold. I don't really have an appetite. My, you do seem a little warm. Well, can you make it to school? Technically, I did go to a school, but it was mostly self-study. It wouldn't matter much if I missed a day, would it? Could have been that I hadn't been feeling well for the last few days because I really did have a cold. If I took some medicine and got a good day of rest, I might be able to greet everyone with a smile tomorrow. Startled, I looked back and forth between the entrance and the clock. It was 10 minutes later than when I usually met up with Reina. It was Reina. Reina-chan came to get you. What are you going to do? Are you going to take the day off? Reina was a good girl. She might be somewhat quirky, but she was certainly cute. Lunches she made were delicious, and she always looked out for me. Why should I be so scared of something like that? It wasn't Reina's fault. It was probably mine. It had to have been my cold. It just had to be. I'll rest. Sorry. And I'll go send her off for you. Mom headed off to the door. I would have to pass by the entrance to get back to my room. I didn't have the nerve to meet with Reina, so I wrapped myself in a blanket on the sofa and closed my eyes. I was so sleep deprived, I quickly fell into a deep slumber. Oh, she's gonna be standing there when he wakes up. I had only intended to lie down for a bit, but it was almost noon when I woke up. I called out to my parents, but they didn't seem to be around. On the table, I found lunch prepared and a note. Mom and Dad had apparently driven off to somewhere far away. Likely had to do with Dad's work. This happened every so often, so it wasn't that unusual. They would probably be back sometime after dinner. On the note, it said, "The insurance card is in the cabinet. Take it and go to the hospital." There was also a well-drawn map to the hospital. That's right. I hadn't been there before, so I didn't know exactly where it was. I had a light lunch, although it really was just leftovers from the morning, and just in case, went over to the hospital. I don't think it's just a cold. I really don't. I really don't think you were imagining that stuff. Normally, I'd never be here in the middle of a weekday. Just walking around like this had me feeling guilty. It was an odd feeling. I used to feel like that too whenever I'd take a day off and then I'd go out. But it does feel weird. Following my mom's map, I took a road I usually never used. After walking for a bit, the hospital sign came into view. Irie Clinic was written rather stylishly on the sign. The clinic wasn't very big, but based on the scale of the rest of the Hinamizawa, it was far too grand. There was a parking lot and even a reserved spot for buses. They must be making a mint. I spaced out in the air-conditioned waiting room until it was my turn to be seen. Maibara-san, please make your way to the examination room. After probably answering all the chatty doctor's questions, he responded with the old, "It's probably a cold. They gave me a shot and 3 days worth of medicine. Thought it was a little overboard, but if it would clear away the gloomy feeling I'd be having lately, then it was worth it." I settled the bill and took a quick trip to the washroom. As I was leaving, I overheard a conversation between some elderly people who seemed to be regulars at the clinic. Of course, I had no intention of eavesdropping. If it just wasn't for that word. Must have been an Oni Kikuchi. I wonder, she was still pretty young, might have just eloped. With whom? That man from Tokyo who visits every season. That young one with the big camera. Didn't you know they were getting along pretty well? Were they talking about Tomitake-san? I could feel my ears perking up. I don't know about that, but you have to make preparations before you elope. Leave a note or quit their job or something. It's an elopement because they didn't have a note or a message. The thought that I've never seen the young nurse's face again makes me rather sad. Takano-san is an upstanding young woman. She'll be fine wherever she goes. So her name was Takano-san. That woman with Tomitake-san. And she worked at this clinic? Oyashiro-sama's shadow was following me wherever I went. I started listening more closely, but they began talking about fishing, and it seemed like they were going to revisit the topic. I gave up and left. Thus, even though I was separated from the daily monotony of school, I wasn't able to escape Oyashiro-sama's shadow. But of course, Oyashiro-sama was the guardian deity of this place, of Hinamizawa. As long as I was in Hinamizawa, I wouldn't be able to escape. Yep, that's true. Apparently. Maybe it was because I was walking outside, but my appetite had suddenly returned. I might as well buy a snack with the change from the examination room on the way home. I have a cat on my lap, so ignore that. Contemplating that, I turned onto a familiar street. At that moment, I heard a car horn abruptly honk behind me. Was I really walking so far into the middle of the road where I'd be in a car's way? I moved farther up to the side, but the horn was still honking at me. I turned around, peeved. Oh! Maibara-san, good day to you. It was Oishi-san. He stepped out of his car, AC on full blast, and waved at me. What's up today? School on break? Just not feeling well, so I took the day off. I was about to buy lunch and head back home. That's great. Just about to get lunch myself. Would you mind going together? If you're not feeling up to it, don't mind me. I was just going to lie down after going home anyway. I didn't really have a cold. I doubt you'd want to eat at one of these local places. Let's go into town. It's a bit of a drive. Is that all right? I know a pretty good place. I'd finally begun to understand Oishi-san's roundabout way of saying things. He probably wanted to talk to me about stuff that would be too difficult to discuss while in Hinamizawa. Yep, because there are so many prying ears in Hinamizawa. I went with Oishi-san riding in his frigid car. It's almost as if the bright sunlight outside was a lie. Sorry about calling you so late last night. Did your parents get angry at you? No. I recalled Reina, who had been listening to the phone conversation all the time. Separated from me just by the door. Even now, in the brightness of the sunlight, the thought still creeped me out. The big bump that jolted the car, the road connected to the city, changed from dirt to pavement. My head swiveled back with a sudden realization. That's right. This was where Tomitake-san died. They've hit a snag on the investigation regarding Tomitake-san. Oishi-san spoke while peering at me from the corner of his eye. They believed it was caused by hallucinogens, given how he was clawing out his own throat. But a drug that could cause that to happen so suddenly is extremely hard to come by. They believed it was... Oh, I already read that. Bear in mind, of course, the autopsy was done with that premise in mind, but we didn't find any leads. You know that thing we see in comics all the time? Where there's a drug that if you put it in them, it doesn't leave any traces? It exists. Sakinio call something or other. Well, it's pretty common, but you see... There doesn't seem to be any kind of drug that would cause Tomitake-san to react like that. Then you're saying the police concluded Tomitake-san just died from the curse? I couldn't help but feel that the police were worthless. I just wanted the idea of a curse to be disassociated from Tomitake-san's mysterious death. Unfortunately, that's how it looks right now, but... Putting aside the cause of death, without a doubt he was surrounded by a group of people and had taken a beating before he died. There was no curse, but an incident that unquestionably involved other humans. That made me feel a bit relieved. But was it just humans? Was it? We passed in front of the rather desolate, but still busier than Hinamizawa train station. The car pulled into a restaurant parking lot, and I followed Oishi-san into the shop. It was pretty crowded, but there were only adults at this hour. Of course, there wouldn't be children here at the middle of the weekday. In the middle of a weekday. 2, please, non-smoking. This way, please. When you're ready to order, please call me over. We were led by a particularly dressed peculiarly, wow, I cannot say that word today. You know what I mean. Dressed waitress to our table. I sat with Oichi-san in the booth. Ow. You kept biting me. So what'd you think? Aren't the waitress's outfits here cute? Huh? Well, I guess. The shop is always quite busy. It's more about the waitresses and the food, you see. Uh-huh. Oishi-san, you're leering. Huh? Am I really? I mean, I'd probably be staring too, but, you know. Regardless of how the waitresses looked, the food was decent enough. Finishing our meals while talking about some inane topic, Oishi-san's after-meal cup of coffee arrived at the table. Yesterday we talked about Hinamizawa's past, didn't we? Yeah, that it was the village of man-eating demons or something like that. I didn't know how much about it myself, so I asked my grandmother about it this morning. Oishi-san took out the notepad that was stuffed into his breast pocket. Turns out that Hinamizawa used to be called Onigafuchi, or Ogre's Abyss. Onigafuchi. That's quite a name. That name is still around. The marsh where the Shintoist priest wife drowned herself is still called Ogre's Abyss. It's said that the depths of the marsh connect to the realm of demons. Of course, nobody had told me anything about such an ominous marsh. And you see, it appears they were both feared and revered. A respect born of fear. I guess you could say it was kind of a deification. A village of inhuman creatures. Seems the demons were Senin, or mountain-dwelling mystics of sorts. Taking villagers with incurable illnesses into the Ogre's Abyss and healing them, for example. Even if we are calling them demons, Tengu, long-nosed goblins, or Senin would be a more apt description. They don't seem like such terrible people, even though they were called demons. But they were still man-eating demons. According to the story my grandma told me, as payment for treating the son's illness, let us eat the mother who brought him here was apparently how things went. The price of curing her son was herself? That's unsettling. Of course the mother took her son and ran. Then, you see, all the people who lived in Onigafuchi. The demons chased them down, rounded them up, captured them. The entire village, apparently. It's quite a frightening thing to imagine. In the end, it seems both the mother and son were caught and eaten. The end. There's a problem with this story. Both witnesses in the story were eaten, so nobody would be able to tell the tale. Huh? Bwahaha, there are plenty of old fables like this. In contrast to the ghastly tale, Oishi-san laughed heartily while sipping his coffee. But, well, there are quite a few other tales, where the demons from Onigafuchi band together to capture their prey. I recalled that Mion said all the villagers united and fought against the dam construction. I saw similarities with how that part about unification overlapped. Normally they hunted out a single person and they chose who it was going to be beforehand. Huh? That caught my attention. Oishi-san also appeared to be pondering what it meant. My grandmother told me that you must never interfere with the demon's hunt. You should just hole up in your house and hide under the covers, she said. So what does this all mean? It means you mustn't ever help or protect the prey. As long as you don't disturb the demon's hunt, damn cat, no harm will fall upon the villagers. Seems there's that kind of rule. Basically, don't help the victims. Pretend you didn't see the atrocities, in other words. What happens if you break the rule? Well, they're man-eating demons after all. Many parts of that tale caught my attention. Parts of the story he told me overlap with his theory that the perpetrators were all the village families. Even if it wasn't the whole village, it was conceived that the villagers were hiding under the covers and leaving them to die. When there's a group that was on their hunt, wasn't it? I didn't dare speak it. Then Oishi-san, I guess it looks like it's either the village's family or a group of villagers perpetrating the crimes. What do you think, Maebara-san? Ah, excuse me. Another cup of coffee, please. That's what I wanted to know. Seemed that we were both waiting for the other to say the last part. I waited for the waitress to finish pouring coffee before speaking. Last year, had a nagging feeling when Satoshi-kun disappeared. Oishi-san muttered as he watched the milk swirl around in his coffee. So those friends of Satoshi-san, meaning your group of friends, Maebara-san, I had a bit, really just a little bit, okay, of background checking done on them. If Oishi-san had said this to me before, I would have been furious, as he told me earlier not to suspect my friends. But as I was now, I couldn't. This might sound pretty stupid. Maebara-san, if you feel that it's stupid, please say so. I'll just stop. Oishi-san was wearing the most serious expression I'd ever seen from him. It was as if he was telling me to prepare myself and listen. There were quite a few things I regretted hearing from Oishi-san, but none of them were as threatening as this. The little voice inside me was screaming like an alarm. Stop, Keichi. This is probably the last one. Take a deep breath and silence that voice. I would not run from the truth. Please. That was all I could utter. Oishi-san stared into my eyes silently for a few moments. After he was certain I was ready, he began. The victim of the incident in the first year was the overseer. A few weeks prior, he had an altercation with Mion Sotozaki-san. Multiple altercations. Oishi-san had said that before that Mion had defied the dam project vehemently. Well, it wasn't hard to imagine how she'd be if she got worked up. In the second year, the married couple who supported the project died in the accident, right? They had a daughter. Her name is Satoko Hojo-san. Oh! Oh, so she's the daughter of the married couple. Okay, so she is linked to all this. I figured she was linked to something, but like she doesn't have a huge effect on the actual like village itself like the other two do. Satoko meaning Satoko? Uishi-san told me Uishi-san's look told me that the voice was too loud. I realized it as well and quickly quieted down. Shinto priest and his wife, who died at the third year, you see. Their daughter is Rika Furude-san. Yep, I knew that. Rika-chan was the housewife who died in the fourth year. You know already, don't you? It was the step-aunt of Satoko Hojo-san. She was in her aunt and uncle's custody, as she had lost both of her parents in the accident. She lived in the victim's house. I could tell my lips were getting dry. I didn't even have the wits to keep my mouth from hanging agape. I thought it was nothing but a bizarre incident, one that I could easily distance myself from. But clicking and clacking, it had snuck all the way to my feet. The one who disappeared for the fourth year, by the way, he was Satoko-san's older brother. Wait just a second. It took everything I had to finally say that. I gulped down a glass of water and once again wiped my face with a napkin. Calm down, Keichi Maebara. But Uishi-san was relentless. Instead of waiting for me to finish sorting out my feelings, he started speaking again. Last of the things I shouldn't have heard. There we go. All of the victims seem to be connected to your group of friends. This has to be just a coincidence. Maebara-san, keep it down. Everyone's looking. Mion? Satoko? Rika-chan? So what if they're connected? You're telling me all of my friends? It couldn't be. It just couldn't be. Oh, Reina's different, isn't she? Yeah, she's also, listening to your conversations and shit, so... Reina isn't connected with the victims at all. Or is she? Dun dun dun. Reina Ryugu-san was living in the suburb of Ibaraki Prefecture up until last year. Well, it's true she hadn't directly met any of the victims. He said it in a roundabout way. Is he saying she's also connected? Actually, I looked into her. Before Ryugu-san moved away to Hinamizawa, she was suspended from school. Seems she went through her school building and broke all the windows. Reina did that? She broke all the windows at her school? That same silly Reina had? I couldn't even imagine it. Seems that after her 3-day suspension, she didn't return to school. She went to a neurologist and was diagnosed with dysautonomia. She was given weeks of counseling and medication. What is dysautonomia? I wondered if it was something like a nervous breakdown. I'd heard that it seems to happen to people who are really methodical or overly sensitive. Neither of those matched Reina's easygoing personality. And in the counselor's medical report, he recorded all of the conversations he had with Reina-san. It shows up, and quite a bit at that. What did? I pressed forward carelessly. There couldn't be anything more for me to regret. She mentioned the word Oyashiru-sama. It felt like someone's stone-cold hand was caressing my back. Why had Reina spoken of Oyashiro-sama before she even came to Hinamizawa? Yeah, that's really weird. Seems that the Oyashiro-sama she spoke of was like a ghost, appearing in her house every night, standing over her pillow, looking down at her. My mind froze. I couldn't process what I was being told. A while after that, she moved to Hinamizawa. Ah, that's right. She's not an outsider. Huh? According to the residency register, the Ryugu family used to reside in Hinamizawa. Reina-san moved to Ibaraki right after she finished elementary school. My mind went completely blank. It was similar to the static you'd see on a blank TV channel. My ears began ringing as I lost all sense of comprehension. Maebara-san, are you alright? Shall we stop? Those words brought me back. I couldn't let it end here. Now I understand Reina. Then how about the last victim, Tomitake-san? Who was he connected with? Irritated, I let out one final reprisal. All of them. Have you forgotten, Maebara-san? Didn't you all spend the night at the festival together quite merrily? Quite a few of the officers saw you enjoying yourselves. Now there was nothing I could respond with. I fell silently as my brain turned to mush. We should get going. Maibara-san, did you take your afternoon medicine? I completely forgot about the medicine I had gotten today until Oishi-san said that. I got another glass of water and we left the shop after I chugged it down. Whew, that's weird. We got into the car and returned to Hinamizawa via the rough road. I never really paid attention when I was on my bike, but did cars normally shake this much? It's almost as if the road was definitely trying to tell me something. But a big jolt from the difference in elevation of the road when it changed from cement to dirt. I was certain that I heard Tomoitaki-san scream. I sat in silence, just letting myself be shaken by the car. I'll drop you off at your house. You missed school because you were ill, right? My apologies for the long conversation. Why did you talk to me? I blurted out the question. Really just blurted it out. I didn't expect an answer. I did check with you first, didn't I? We should just stop. Not that. Why did you reach out to me? I understood quite out that Oishi-san was investigating a string of suspicious incidents. Why was he telling me all this? I knew nothing, and I couldn't help. Everything Oishi-san spoke of was news to me. First of all, what could I, having just moved here, know? By chance, if there was a reason for Oishi-san to reach out to me, then it would have to be that I looked suspicious to Oishi-san, as I was part of Mion's circle of friends. I'm retiring this year. Plan on moving away after retiring, as my grandma wants. So while I'm still on the case, I want to bring the truth behind this incident to light. So Oishi-san, you suspect them, don't you? All of them. Oishi-san didn't really give a response. I felt a little late, but I thought it was his way of showing a bit of consideration for my feelings. This is mostly my intuition from 30 years on the job. Maibara-san, you're the one in danger. Huh? I wanted to reply with that was absurd, but in my downtrodden state I couldn't bring myself to say it. I'll be retiring this year, so I won't be at the Watanagashi next year. So I want to settle things. In other words, he was insinuating that on the next Watanagashi, I might be the victim. I've been warned by the chief as well. Each incident in the string of cases has to be solved, so don't bring it up again, or so I was told. This is the pressure that I'm facing. Pressure from what? Someone in Hinamizawa. We've arrived. Is this fine? After some time, the car finally reached the path to my house. The clock read 2 p.m. I was surprised so little time had passed since we ate. It was hot outside the car. Tripping of the Higurashi hurt my ears. I won't mind if you just forgot everything I told you today, but I'm still going to keep investigating. I'll end Oyashiro-sama's curse this year. So you're saying I should contact you if anything happens? It's fine. Just contact me when you feel you have to, Maibara-san. I wasn't collected enough to understand Oishi-san's roundabout way of saying it. Be sure to take it easy. I'm sorry for throwing all of this at you while you're still taking the day off because you're sick. I didn't really give any sort of response. I'll always be on your side. If anything, believe that. I'll be off now. Yeah, he's actually a really good guy. I'll always be on your side. The tires crunching over the dirt road as the car made a U-turn and disappeared into a cloud of kicked-up dust. I felt like I was watching a boat only throw me a lifesaver in shark-infested waters before disappearing into the distance. That was the first time I brought Oishi-san. I thought Oishi-san was being unfair, telling me I was going to be the next victim and just saying to contact him if something happened. This wasn't a criminal investigation. He was fishing, and I was just the bait dangling off the line. Would the fish be the perpetrator? Was it really just Oshiro-sama's curse? Either way, the bait would be swallowed whole. Damn it. I don't want to die. For some time, I could do nothing but stare at the puddle of water left behind by the AC from the car. Interesting. I'm gonna take some water because my throat's so dry. I wonder how much time has passed since I laid down. It was getting dark outside. My body was soaked in sweat. Probably be a good idea to change my sheets. At that moment, the phone downstairs rang. It was probably Mom. Mom was quite the worrywart. Maybe she had called many times, but just didn't notice it. I don't think it's Mom. Hello, this is Maibara Residence. Oh, he's alive. Hello, this is Mion. How you doing? Is this one of Keiichi's friends? Keiichi is resting now, but shall I put him on? Huh? Is this his dad? Ah, so sorry. Wahaha, idiot. You fell for it, huh? Kei-chan? For our exchange, we both had a good laugh together, except I was suspicious of her even as we were laughing. Was everybody really involved in the incidents? The fact that I couldn't say no saddened me. I'm glad that you seem well. Reina was really worried, you know? Stuka was happy and said you got what you deserved. Richan said how unfortunate he's sick. Looks like everyone was making a big deal out of it. Well, you know, so, Kei-chan, is now a bad time to come pay you a visit? A visit? No, it's okay. It's not like I'm dying. My grandma made a ton of mochi, you see. I was told to share them, so I'll bring you some. Hey now, you'll catch my cold. Not to worry. Both Reina and I are too stupid to catch a cold. See ya. Be there in a bit. She hung up cheerfully. Reina's coming too? That's what it sounded like. I was so concerned about meeting Reina, but I guess if she was with Mion... I don't know about that! I heard the doorbell 10 minutes later. How are you feeling? Did you take your medicine and rest? I did just that. Thank goodness you look well. I was worried. Sorry, I'll be fine tomorrow. Mion showed a complete lack of concern for someone who's recovering, and Reina looked like she was worried about me from the bottom of her heart. I didn't like that there was anything behind those expressions. I thought we might hang out for a bit, but it looks like you're not quite in the condition for it. Huh? You don't say. Seeing my face appeared a bit sullen. Then here, Keiichi-kun, these are the mochi Mi-chan's grandma made. Reina held out the package wrapped in newspaper. There might be about 5 in here. It was quite hefty. Thanks, and my regards to your grandma, Mion. Yep. And there's one I made in there as well. I wonder if Keiichi-san can guess which one. This is Kei-chan's homework since he missed the club meeting today. There are letters on each mochi, so I'll ask you tomorrow. Were you checking if I was feeling better, or did you just come here for better activities? For club activities. Yep, looking fine. Guess you'll be able to make it tomorrow. Man, what are you going to do if my fever comes back because of your shenanigans? Mi-chan, we shouldn't be making such a racket. Let's go. The other people here will get angry. Both of them thought my parents were home. It was because the entranceway was a mess. You're right, let's get going. By the way, Kei-chan, yeah? Oh. I don't like that face. That's the face Reina made. So she's doing it too. What did you eat for lunch? Sudden question startled me and I went wide-eyed when I saw Mion. I had never seen her like that. It was a highly unsettling visage. Why is she asking me about what I ate for lunch? What she said was so inane it was almost meaningless. The way she said it, it was almost like she didn't even care at all about what I ate. I ate out. She must have suspected that I was with Oishi-san. Anyway, I felt that if I hesitated or tried to change the subject, then they'd read too deeply into it, so I tried answering as quickly as possible. Except, contrary to the efforts I had made, there was a long pause before they replied. Oh, she's doing it too now. Oh boy. So you ate out for lunch, Keiichi-kun. The glimmer from Reina's eyes had changed at some point as well. It was now sharp, as if to make me feel the feigned ignorance behind her words even more. As if she already knew. That's how it looked to me. Well, was it good? Why are you asking me this? Mion was speaking in an unusually low tone, almost as if she knew that I had eaten at the restaurant in town. No, I'm overthinking this. I mean, both of them should have been in school at lunchtime. There's no way they could have known where I was. Seems you were with a rather austere-looking elder guy. Who was he? Flop. Package with the mochi I was holding slipped out of my hands, till the blood had drained from my face, making me go pale. Oh? Keiichi-kun? Who was he? Could it be the person from before? I wonder. I felt the back of my throat going dry. This was no longer a bluff. They knew everything? How do you know that? Took everything I had to finally force those words from my throat. My knees were shaking. Because there's nothing this old man doesn't know. Mion sneered knowingly, and her laugh seemed to carry on forever. So, Kei-chan, what did you talk about? Seems like you got pretty worked up over it, too. We were talking about you guys. It didn't have anything to do with you or Reina. We weren't talking about you guys. I was about to say, I was like, whoa, Kei-chan, you're getting a little brave. It didn't have anything to do with you or Reina. Isn't it a bit strange to hear our names come up even though nobody asked about that? Reina's unwavering gaze pierced through my eyes and peered further inside me. I dug my own grave. My heart was throbbing so much it felt like it was going to explode. Well, whatever you're trying to hide, this old man already sees through it all. Remember that. I couldn't even shake my head. Took everything I had to stop my teeth from chattering. She'd never let her gaze break from mine, even as she tilted her head slightly. Keichi-kun, you don't look so good. I think you should lie down. That's true. We should both head back home. Oh, Jesus. As if nothing had happened, they both giggled at each other and started making their way out. Whew! I hadn't moved a muscle since I dropped the package of mochi. As they left, the door slowly closed behind them. All I could do was stare, as if I couldn't move until the door was completely closed. Just as the door was about to close, it opened again slightly with a sudden creak, sending my heart racing once again. A single eye peered in through the narrow slit, and Mion's hawkish gaze peered at me once again. See, Kei-chan? Yeah. I'd hate it if you missed school tomorrow, alright? Oh, boy. Thud. The door closed. I wasn't able to move a muscle even after their low laughter died off into the distance and silence once again enveloped the room. Coming back to my senses, the first thing I did was lock the door. Holy shit. When their faces changed, you could see the instant, like, something is not right. You're like, oh boy, I am terrified for my life. They knew what Oishi-san and I talked about? Why? How? No, that wasn't important. Thinking about it now, all of it could have been overheard from the beginning when Oishi-san met me. Just as Mion said, I couldn't hide anything. Then what were they trying to tell me? That part was obvious. They were warning me not to say anything unnecessary. What did they deem unnecessary? I only talked with Oishi-san about one thing, and they were warning me that that was unnecessary. What was it that Oishi-san talked to me about? The incidents involving Oyashiro-sama's curse that occurred every year weren't individual cases, but were connected as a whole, as well as the fact that there may be multiple perpetrators hidden within Hinamizawa. No, more precisely, that Mion, Reina, Satoka, and Rika-chan were all suspicious. Is that what they were warning me against? What kind of nonsense am I thinking about? It hit my face hard enough that it let out a loud slap. If only that would wake me from this nightmare. But for some reason it felt like I was punching a blanket. It was laughably painless. Calm down, Keiichi Maebara. When did I become such a pessimist? Calm down, settle down and sort things out. The reason Mion knew I was eating lunch with Oishi-san was probably because somebody from Hinamizawa just happened to be there at the time. He must have told Mion that I was there. That made the most sense. Plus, come to think of it, she didn't ask me where I ate lunch, did she? She only asked, was it good? They were just curious since I was together with someone not from Hinamizawa. It's not as if they had any ulterior motives. That's it. That has to be it. Thinking about it that way is the same with Reina. I was just being strangely ambiguous about when I met with Oishi-san, and Reina was just correcting me on that. That's when I was bewildered by the change in character from the usually mild-mannered Reina, and was just startled by it. It's the most natural way of thinking about it. I felt like my mind was mixed up like a tangled mess of spaghetti. Deep red marinara sauce would have poured out of my nose and ears if you squeezed my head. Thinking that, I suddenly felt like vomiting. I really didn't want that to happen, so I stopped holding my head. Lately, I had no idea about what anyone was saying. Spending time with them was fun. It didn't feel like there was any sort of hidden agenda. I really do think that they're a good bunch of people. When I just moved here and couldn't make heads or tails of everything, they were really kind to me. Reina was really kind and always looked after me. As long as that strange affliction didn't rear its ugly head, she was really pretty cute. Mion is also a really good person. She didn't care about anyone's age or gender and was optimistic and outgoing. I was never bored when I was with her. Talking of not getting bored, rambunctious Satoka was a good person for that too. She was pretty bratty. That was just the way she interacted with others. Rika-chan was the same way. She didn't speak often. That didn't mean she was always silent. They're my friends. But after hearing of the better untold secrets of Hinamizawa from Oishi-san and Tomitake-san, when I was told about Oyashiro-sama's curse, things started going crazy. And hearing from Oishi-san that Mion, Reina, Satoka, and Rika-chan were all suspicious. After that, everyone changed. That's right. It all started getting weird after Oishi-san told me about all that strange stuff. All that time, I really should have just not listened to those weird stories. And I even shouldn't have heard about the past incidents from Tomotage-san the night of the one in Nagashi. If I just hadn't gotten that strange sense of curiosity, if I just hadn't... That's right. So that's why they... Tomotage-san. That impudent outsider speaking to the likes of me after everybody went out of their way to keep it a secret from me. Though probably Oishi-san as well. Trying to unearth when everybody was warning me is better left unburied. Besides that, he was unforgiving for spewing words that made me doubt the others. Of course a guy like that is going to be... killed? Both Tomotage-san and Oishi-san were nothing but outsiders after all. They were entities who couldn't coexist with the people of Hinamizawa. Those guys should just fall to Oishima's curse and just die, I think. It wasn't their fault. It was my fault for not being able to hold back my curiosity. It wasn't their fault. It wasn't their fault. It wasn't their fault. It wasn't their fault. He's going nuts. I settled into a daze. It was a lethargic feeling like I had just gotten up, but the ominous chill that haunted me had subsided. I was fine now. I was no longer frightened. I had completely recovered. I'll go to school tomorrow, right as rain. I'll greet everyone. I'll take part in club activities. It'll definitely be fun. It had to be fun. I was one of them, after all. Ah, that reminds me. I need to eat those mochi. I hope I'm able to tell which one Reina made. I remembered the homework the two brought with when they visited me. But wow, our club did delivery. That was something else. Picked up the package I dropped on the floor and headed into the living room. It would be nice, I guess, to have some tea with it. To fill my mouth with mochi while drinking tea. Oh, it was quite a delectable situation I was in. Opening up the newspaper wrapping, there were 5 plump red bean paste mochis fit snugly inside. There were letters written from left to right on the newspaper, A, B, C, D, and E. Now then, they said Reina made one of these. I wonder which one. There wasn't much difference in how they looked. They smelled and appeared about the same. It's a pretty difficult problem. The biggest difference was probably their shape. I wasn't sure what kind of person Mion's grandma was, but Reina's had to be different from hers. Looking carefully, I could see one mochi that was made very neatly. So well that, just by staring at it, one can tell it stood out. Looks like the challenge depends on whether or not this one's Reina's. Calm down and think even harder. Mion had said her grandma made a ton of them and was told to give some out, if I remembered correctly. So that meant 4 of these were from that large batch. So then what about Reina? She probably only made one. So she's probably spent quite a lot of time on it, meaning the one that Reina made was this one, E. For a moment, I thought it may have been a trap Mion laid as she knew I'd pick up on it. But that probably wasn't the case. I wouldn't be so sure if I knew Mion had made it, but since she had Reina made it, probably wasn't a trap. Alright. My tea is ready too. I'll start with the defending champ, Mion's grandma. Let's see. Not bad. The smooth bean paste and soft, chewy texture left little to be desired. The tea I drank afterwards also accentuated the experience. This was an exquisite piece of work. Now, how about Reina's? Ooh, I'm a little scared. Creation was so delicate, one would think it was a high-class Japanese dessert. Since I normally had quite the appetite, I was slightly worried about the size of the portion. But well, first a bite. This was quite a difficult one to judge, actually. The ingredients were exactly the same, there was a little difference in flavor. What was different was how it was shaped at the end, so it was to be expected. The deciding factors would be presentation and volume. The well-performed and well-sized champion versus Reina the challenger was a size you just couldn't get enough of. I'd only had a bite of Reina's. I would probably have to wait until after I was done eating to make my decision. Maybe there was something hidden inside that would cause an upset. Geez, my prediction was right. My tongue touched something. It didn't feel like something edible, so I reached in with my fingers and grabbed it. She put something in it. I knew it! I knew there was a reason I should have been skeptical. What was this? Before I could fully comprehend what it was, I threw away the rest of the mochi I was eating as fast as I could. I slammed against the wall, causing the bee jam to splatter. Then after sticking for a moment, it slid down to the floor. I was dumbstruck by my own actions. What was I doing? Reina got out of her way to make it for me. How could I? Right? Dumbstruck, I looked down at the hand that performed such a vile act. Then I remembered what I had taken out of my mouth. First I thought it was a hair. Even though it was shorter than Mion's, Reina's hair was still quite long, and it wasn't this short. It was also a bit too hard to be a hair. It was thick enough to roll around my tongue. There was a bit of metallic sheen on on the end of it. Ah, yes, there was a hole for where thread goes through, like it was a sewing needle. Yes, that's right. looked very much like a sewing needle, exactly like one. The end was pointed as well, quite sharply. How would a sewing needle? I guess they do have small ones. I was like, I'd never seen. Really did look just like a sewing needle, huh? What did I mean? But looked very much like a sewing needle just a bit ago. Couldn't answer. But the voice inside me already knew. Let me know by chattering my molars together. Couldn't starve off the terror welling inside me. Suddenly I tasted something metallic and felt a prickling pain at the back of my throat. I stuck my finger in the back of my mouth, felt around to see if I was bleeding. Suddenly I felt the urge to vomit. The shape taste of vile irritated the back of my throat. I clasped both hands over my mouth, and after writhing in agony, I was somewhat able to hold back the nausea. I was finally able to breathe normally again. This time my heart was intensely throbbing. Then it finally registered. Exactly what was mixed in with the mochi. Before I could think of the correct word, my hands were already on the move. Splat. Plop. Splort. I tossed the rest of the mochi against the wall. Geometric patterns of the scattered V jam on the wall suddenly invoked a terrible omen in my mind. After looking away, I dashed out to the hall and flew upstairs to my room, where I stayed under my covers until morning. What was in it? I clutched my own shoulders, howling madly in a mix of fear, anger, sadness, and frustration. This wasn't a threat or warning or reminder, nothing as simple as that. What had happened in Hinamizawa? What is happening in Hinamizawa? What would happen? I didn't know the answer to any of those questions. Where did I break a taboo? Regardless, now Reina and Mion and others, they considered me an enemy. They thought I should just die. I won't let you kill me, not for such a pointless reason. I fell into a restless sleep as I was crushed by my negative emotions. It was as if I was being drawn into a billowing, bottomless marsh. What was in it? What was in it? Well, he says it was like a sewing needle, and then he was like, afterwards, he said, oh, I know what was really in there. What was it? I want to know. Let's cut to the chase. Is there a drug that causes someone to kill themselves? Not directly, no. It's quite a roundabout response. You're saying there's one that does it indirectly? Something that puts you into a suicide mental state like that? That's hard to say. What would a suicidal mental state be? Like a person with a serious bipolar disorder. It's believed that people are most likely to attempt suicide when swinging from depression to mania. Clinical depression and bipolar disorder are different. Clinical depression indicates a prolonged state of depression, whereas bipolar disorder is characterized as a passive, depressed state accompanied by a very active manic state. Individuals with clinical depression suffer from low self-esteem and are quite pessimistic, but rarely commit suicide. They do not have the willpower to commit suicide, nor does mania on its own lead to suicide. That has an opposite effect, filling the person with overconfidence and making them feel as though they're walking on air. Thus, they do not commit suicide. Huh. That's interesting. I never thought about it like that, but it is true. People with depression are like, they're too scared of death to do that, even if they are wallowing in their own sadness. They don't have the willpower. They don't have that drive to do it. But like people in mania, that are, that are like walking on air and just elated, like abnormally, they don't have the drive to do it either because they're like happy, not like happy, but like crazy. I guess they're just on that state of elation that they're just too high to really even think about it. That's interesting. Neither state causes suicide, but when the condition changes, they might do so. There is a desire to commit suicide when in a state of depression, but they do not have the willpower to commit such a formidable act. But when they enter mania, they gain a burst of willpower and their body moves as they desire. Huh. Interesting. I see, so it means they gain the willpower to commit suicide. That's how it goes. That's why patients are given sedatives during that time to keep them from acting on their impulses. Then was Tomitake-san bipolar? People who suffer from bipolar disorders generally commit suicide by more civilized means, like, say, hanging or jumping off a building. Self-harm, as though going through withdrawal, is completely different. Tomitake-san's death wasn't civilized. so one would think it was caused by some foreign substance. As I said from the start, tell me of a drug that causes someone to commit suicide. There are reports that methamphetamine overdoses produce a condition that resembles bipolar disorder. It's a stimulant. Barbiturate overdoses are also reported to cause erratic behavior. That's a sleep aid. There were no signs of stimulants. Are there any other possibilities? All I can think of is that it's some sort of illness. Something like Graves' disease, which affects the thyroid and is known to cause symptoms that resemble bipolar disorder. But Graves' disease has many other characteristic symptoms of its own. The deceased exhibited none of them. I wonder, is there something that could happen more spontaneously? Something that fits this case and would cause someone to want to commit suicide all of a sudden? Are you familiar with organic mental disorders? In short, it's a condition where the brain is left out of whack due to physical injury or illness. It can be caused by drugs, but can also be caused by physical trauma, encephalitis, a stroke, or even tumors. Basically, even without a drug, one could succumb to an irregular mental state. The deceased was surrounded after being chased, and his life was in danger, right? All that stress could have messed with his brain chemistry. He could have hit his head, and those factors combined might have caused him to mutilate himself. It's a possibility. Could you explain it to me in simpler terms? Bwahaha. Basically, he knocked his noggin in the brawl, and that made him go haywire. Nah, then his lady didn't have any intent to kill. Smack him in a bad place when he nicked some change. Two plump men laughed hoarsely. But of course, it's not like that. Undoubtedly. If it was a habitual drug use, if it was something mental, the deceased's body holds the key. How are things on your end? Oh my goodness, look at the time. I need to get back soon or Kuma-chan will get angry with me. Yeah, good luck. Best wishes. Best wishes. So was he talking about, was Oishi talking to another, I'm assuming he was talking to another detective. Interesting though, I never thought about the different, chemicals, and drugs and stuff that can cause different mental states. Those guys just now, they had national diet badges. And it's prefectural assembly member and city councilor Sonozaki. That's interesting. The prefectural assembly member and city councilor are related. It's dirty is what it is, shouting out each other's name during elections. Well, one is up for election, the other one holds an assembly, and they double up their campaign activities, blatantly. I don't know much about this stuff, but isn't that against the rules of the election? As long as they have no prior consultation, there are no restrictions on their political activities. Kuma-chan, the investigation division is going to be pretty tough for you. You should at least brush up on election policies. I'm not suited for the intelligence division, 'cause I'm dumb. There was prefectural assembly member Sonozaki and the city councilor Sonozaki, also the mayor of Hinamizawa, all of them involved with the Sonozaki family. What crap. Looks like they were seen off by the department chief and the deputy chief. Came to me. That night, when the chief invited me along to get some Odin, I thought that was it. You have a lot of connections, so you might have heard something, did you? Nope, not a thing. Ma'am, I'll take a tofu fritter and a fish cake. A counselor barked at me in the police chief's stead. Oh my, is that so? Ma'am, I'll take another bowl. Prefectural Assemblyman Sonozaki and City Councilor Sonozaki were both intimidating. Our snot-nosed career police chief couldn't even handle being yelled at them. They're like Yakuza. A petition with your name came up regarding how the investigation of the Hinamizawa incident is being handled. Goodness, me? I've not the faintest. No need to play dumb. You're reopening the past for cases regarding Hinamizawa, aren't you? I've already got my hands full with Tomitaki's death, actually. Nahaha. Really? That's true, then there's no problem. There was a period of silence. While we were silent, we made headway on our food and drink. That was quite the feast. This month had been a bunch of losses for me, so my wallet was feeling the pinch. Much appreciated. Nah, it's nothing. Tell me a good horse again. I'll be on the same one as you. Nahaha, haven't been doing well there lately. Haven't been able to read the horses at all. Taxi. I'm going by train. Police chief is taking a taxi. I have my own car, but it'd be rash to drive it home. Can't blow it right before retirement with a DUI. Even though he could still rattle it off, it looked like his legs were ready to go. Already goo, excuse me. Pushing him into the cab, I gave the driver the police chief's address. Well, see you again tomorrow. Happy New Year. Oishi-san. Yeah. Past incidents have all been closed. Stop lumping them all together. Those villagers half believe it's really a curse. Well, I'm not convinced. You're going to be retiring next year, aren't you? Weren't you going to pay off your mortgage with your pension and move to Hokkaido with your mom? Mother pines to return to the land of her birth. It's the least I can do. And the pension, well, I'll let me enjoy myself in Susikino. Nahaha. The police chief may issue a special retirement salary raise, he says. A public servant's pension is calculated based on their monthly salary. So if you were to get a raise right before retirement, your bonus to your salaries would be inflated. You get a heavy surplus of funds. That tends to be how it's done around here. Of course, it's not a custom that's thought of highly. The difference between the bonus and the pension is quite a bit. I expect nothing less exemplary from our egghead chief. But, well, they say our salary is compensation for our hard work, but in the end it really just has to do with the passage of time. It's not something I can laugh at, but I'll laugh through it anyway. I don't think it's anything exemplary, but given how hard you've worked, it's not odd that you're getting that much of a pension. I'd like to get that much myself. If I can get it, well, of course I'd want it. Nahaha. You'll get it. You're an adult, after all. Sorry for holding you up here, driver. Thank you very much. I closed the door roughly, interrupting the chief's conversation a bit rudely. Looked like the chief still had something to say, but he just smiled wryly and waved. I waved in return. The cab sped up gradually and soon disappeared among the sea of lights. Nahaha. Oh man, I wonder if I can really repay that loan. Huh. Really don't know what that was all about, but okay. Let me save here. Into chapter 9. I'm thinking. I don't know. I'm wondering, like, how many hours are gonna be in this one. Because I've heard some people, like, people say different things. Some people have said that it takes, up to, 12 hours. Some people say you could do it in 10. I've heard, 8. I don't really know how long this chapter takes. So, I'm not sure how many chapters are in it, to be honest. But interesting. So now Mion's doing the same thing. Like, she's making that, that facial expression that Keichi said about Reina before. That it's just, they gave him that look that's just like, doesn't seem like them. It's like they're a different person. But he doesn't know, why that's happening, like why they're acting like that. It's really weird. We'll do one more chapter for today, and then we'll see. Tap, tap, tap. Sound of muffled footsteps stopped in front of the door to my room. Moment of silence, as if whomever they belonged to was ascertaining if I was inside. Of all the things I should have been doing, I continued on with my restless slumber. I was very much conscious, but my body hadn't caught up yet, even with danger bearing down on me from just beyond the door. It was as if I was completely paralyzed, unable to move. Without a doubt, this was sheer terror. Please, just leave. Hey, why isn't my body awake yet? If they came into my room right now, then... Oh, Jesus. It was probably his mom. Ooh-ah! Eek! I sprinted my way through my covers at my mom, who was opening the door. Whoa, Keiichi? What's the matter? Sorry. I was still half asleep. I thought it was still 1 or 2 a.m. But the morning sun was already streaming through the gap between the curtains. It felt nothing like morning. Yesterday I must have fallen asleep right after that day, and I should have gotten a full 10 hours of rest. But it didn't feel like that at all. My internal clock was completely screwed up and my sense of balance felt off. I felt feverish enough that it was clear to me that I was still not well. Well, Keiichi, how are you feeling? Can you make it to school? I was well enough to go, but I wasn't mentally prepared for it. I was still plagued with the terror from yesterday. If I had swallowed that needle, what would have happened? Oh, so it actually was a needle, but he was explaining to himself that he said it looked like a needle, but he wasn't sure if it was a needle. And then the way he described it was really weird, but I guess he was saying that he had just comprehended that it was actually a needle he was about to swallow. Okay. What if it had pierced my tongue? There was undoubtedly a murderous intent, but I don't think that's all it was. If they really wanted to kill me, then there were other, more certain ways to do it. They wouldn't resort to such a dubious method as having me swallow a needle. Meaning, I didn't want to believe it, but going that far was just a threat from Reina and Mion. Aren't you glad you didn't die? Next time we'll use a more assured method. Like that. Something like sending a letter with a razor inside would have been a joke compared to this. Did you make it to the hospital? Did you take your medicine? Yeah, kinda. Thinking about my mom's dubious gaze bothered me. She seemed more concerned about her son missing 2 days of school rather than him being sick. Ain't that the truth? That's like the entire mentality of, like, society. Society's like, oh, you can't miss work or school or whatever. That's just... But it's like, do you not care about me being sick or not mentally well, you know? Like, at the same time? Like, it's a interesting, like, problem, having to deal with that balance and mentally. It was definitely mental fatigue. I wasn't really physically ill. It'd be hard for you to get back on track once your daily routine is thrown off. Come on, get on up. They say wellness is a state of mind. A lot of times it is, but there are some times that you just can't. Like, and forcing it just makes it worse. I heard that line many times before. I was given an award in elementary school for having perfect attendance, but it wasn't like I was healthier than everyone. Come on, go wash your face. Breakfast is already ready. There isn't much time before Reina-chan comes and gets you. Mom's tone meant I couldn't argue about it, so I had to give up on skipping a second day. By the way, were you the one who got bean paste all over the living room wall, Keichi? You shouldn't do something like that. Your father was quite angry. I didn't feel particularly guilty for doing it, so I didn't have much of a reaction. Also, Mom didn't question me any further about it. She headed back downstairs after she was certain I was getting up. With what Mion said yesterday, I'd hate if you missed school. Ow. School tomorrow. My cat's biting me. The turd. Came back and dwelled in the back of my head. What does she mean by that? I didn't even have to really think about it. She was saying, don't be absent. Taking that a bit further, it was the same as her saying I should just go about living my life as if nothing happened. If I showed any signs of acting unusual, it would probably result in them making their move. For example, maybe I shouldn't pay attention to someone like Oishi-san enticing me with something unusual. Meaning, if I didn't watch my mouth or did anything differently from the norm, in effect, it would end up flagging myself as someone who was not wanted. And it seems that was something that the girls didn't intend to forgive. So if I just went along as normal, no harm would come to me. Was that how it was going to be? All that misery I experienced up until yesterday would almost creepily just fade away. It was an enticing deal. Despite forgetting everything I'd seen or heard these last few days, I'd be able to keep living on like normal. There's no way such a selfish thing could... I swallowed hard. I once again deliberated on the idea that I had just rejected. Ian was probably a good person who had her friends at heart. She was giving me, who had mistakenly broken some rules of theirs, a chance. Was what I did really something so unforgivable? But Mion had given me another chance. She was saying, if I just forgot everything, kept living all like I had been, I'd be forgiven. Keiichi, your food is going to get cold. Hurry up and get down here. Reina will be here if you don't hurry. I'm coming. I crammed my textbooks into my bag and hastily made my way down the stairs. Well, I don't want to go back there. I don't like them anymore. They scare me. I picked up my somewhat bland breakfast. I would move. Like, instantly. Of course, like, if you did, then they'd have more of a reason to hate you because you'd be more of an outsider if you moved. And as they said with Reina, she moved out when she was in elementary school, but then came back. And while she was gone, she had a lot of mental issues. So it, like, stayed with her. So even if he left, I don't really know if that would even help anything. It probably makes things worse. Seems I didn't have much time. It was already past when I usually met up with Reina. But in my mind, I'm thinking I would get the hell out of there. Like, just don't go there. Like, ever. Given yesterday's events, she'd probably be here in the next 5 minutes. I needed to be ready to head to school by then. I had to forget everything what had happened in the past 2 days. Forget it all and return to my normal life. For this to be normal, I have to be where I normally meet up with Reina. Today of all days, the rice was dry and hard to get down. I jumped at the sound and dropped my chopsticks. That chime signaled that Reina had arrived. Mom hurried me along. Come on, Reina-chan's already here. Come on, hurry, hurry. My mother's merry smile and my gloomy face were polar opposites. Yeah, I wouldn't be very happy either. Honestly, I was reluctant to see Raina, who was waiting at the other side of the door. The Raina on the other side, was it the Raina I knew? I couldn't keep her waiting. I needed to do things as usual. Morning. An invigorating greeting filtered in from across the doorway. I came since Keichi-san was a bit late. Will he be okay today? I wonder. The manner in which Reina was concerned was, without a doubt, the Reina I knew. That was probably only if I reciprocated. Forget everything from yesterday, pretend as though nothing had happened. Forget about the gruesome dismemberment, forget about the mysterious death that happened the following years, forget about the people falling to their death, and the terminal illness, and suicide, and the lynching, and the disappearances. Forget it. Forget all of it. Forget that Reina and Mion were scary. Of course, forget it all. Forget about everyone. Forget about the mochi, too. Forget. How do you forget all that? That's crazy. Like, you can't just expect someone to, go through all of that and then just, push it to the back of their mind. That's just crazy talk. Reina, once again, asked to make sure. Can you make it to school? Yeah, I'm fine. Great. Then let's go. Michan is waiting. Reina showed me her usual bright smile. I couldn't find any hint of deceit in her expression. My nervousness dissipated, giving way to relief. I dislike so many people right now. But you see, Satoko-chan was so insistent she could do it. As we were walking, Reina talked about a lot of different stuff, more so than usual. Then? Satoko-chan is clumsy, so she failed no matter how many times she tried. Oh, she was so cute. Everything Reina talked about was just silly and nonsense, so I just replied every so often and laughed from time to time. It was a rather laid-back conversation. We passed by one of our neighbors and they called out to us. Oh my, Keiichi-san and Reina-chan, aren't you two a bit late today? Yan-chan said she was going on ahead. Did Mi-chan look mad, I wonder? We need to hurry up, Keiichi-kun. As we smiled and parted ways with our neighbor, they turned back towards me and stuck out a tongue. Not expecting that, I couldn't help but crack a smile. Keiichi-kun smiled. Huh? What? Reina stopped and stared at me. I was thinking that you still hadn't recovered from your cold since you seemed down this morning, Keiichi-kun, but you seem fine. Fine. With a grin, she gently poked my cheek. It was a bright, sincere smile. Hey, Keiichi Maebara. How can you still date Reina after she showed you a smile like that? Maybe I just had a high fever up until today. I imagined everything that I thought happened because I was bedridden and delirious. I really hoped that was the case. God could grant me just this one wish. There's only one thing that I'd wish for. I would want what happened in the past few days. More specifically, from the night of the Higurashi up until last night. I wanted all of that to have never happened. I wonder how many days I'd wished for this to be the last few days. How many times I'd wished for this these past few days, excuse me. As long as Reina kept on smiling like this, I think it might just become reality. So I wanted Reina to keep smiling. Keep on smiling. Sorry, my nose. So Keiichi-kun... Reina, you bitch. My lights just flickered just now. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Reina. I didn't mean to call you that. She's channeling me from the game. It was mochi yesterday. Did you eat them all? I would be crumbling inside. That vain wish of mine was instantly shattered. My heart began palpitating. The relaxed morning mood suddenly became frigid. Reina's smile was the same as usual. Her eyes were gentle as usual. Those mochi yesterday, did you eat them all? Of course she wasn't asking the question at face value. In other words, Reina was asking, did you get the message? She was probably trying to convey that. Keiichi-kun? I was reluctant to give an answer. Reina stopped walking and stared deeply into my eyes. Don't hesitate, Keiichi Maebara. Reina was acting the same as always, wasn't she? I needed to respond in my usual way. Naturally, of course. Both my throat and mouth had gone dry and my lips were stuck together. Hurry and answer, Keiichi. Not that much time had passed. I could still keep the conversation going naturally. I had to say something quickly. De? Raina playfully mimicked what I said when I finally squeaked something out. Raina's reaction was still normal. It seemed that there wasn't as long of a pause as I had thought. Somehow I finally squeaked out the rest. Delicious. However, my strained efforts neither sullied nor brightened Raina's expression. For a moment I panicked, thinking I had replied incorrectly. But after a few moments, Raina broke into her usual soft smile and giggled with a joyful voice that seemed to echo through the morning air. Being strung along by that laugh, I couldn't help but laugh as well. I see. So did you eat all of them, I wonder? My timid... Why do you have to ask twice? I told you they were good! Jesus! My timid smile froze again. Did you make it without swallowing the sewing needle? Was that what she was asking? If I had swallowed it, then I wouldn't be here. Nah, I couldn't finish all of them. There's still some left. I was scared of it at wits, but that's how I played it. Huh? What about the homework to see if you could tell which one Raina made? That homework. Was it due today? Yep, it's due today. Nishan will get angry. There's probably a penalty game ready for you. Well, I know which one you made, you bitch. We both laughed at each other again. To a casual observer, it was just a typical morning. If I could just let myself believe, then even I'd think it was just the usual morning routine. But I was certain I wasn't mistaken. There was something unimaginable buried beneath the facade of this giggling Raina. Lies. I recalled that unexpected piercing voice I could hardly believe came from Raina's mouth. The moment that image crossed my mind, I felt a cold sweat trickle down my back. Was it only at that particular time that something evil had possessed Raina? No, that was wrong. That was still Raina. Uishi-san told me, didn't he? Actually, I looked into her. Before Ryugu-san moved away to Hinamizawa, she was suspended from school. Seems she went through her school building and broke all the windows. Oh. I hate that expression so much. Every time I see it, I'm like... Raina had a Zordo that normal people didn't. No matter how pleasantly she smiled, that fact would not change. But I couldn't even imagine how she looked as she broke all the glass throughout the school. One thing I knew for certain, that it wasn't something spur of the moment. If it was some sudden outburst of anger, then maybe she'd break a pane or two. But she broke all of the windows, all throughout her school. Just imagine going through your own school breaking windows with a bat. Oh my god, that sound effect, I'm gonna have a heart attack. Swinging full force at each pane of glass, one after another, paying no heed to the flying shards. Your classmates aghast, unable to move from the sudden turn of events. I wonder where she could have found the most windows lined up in a row. Probably the hallway. Walk, wind up. Walk, wind up. These sound effects are spot on. They make it is the most tense I've ever seen in a visual novel. That is insane. It's difficult for me to connect that horrifying image with the Raina smiling at me right now, but I just had to imagine it. Impossible, because it was unimaginable. That naive way of thinking no longer worked. The unpleasant piercing sound of shattered glass, the crunching noise as Raina tread across the broken shards, walking towards me. Raina's classmates growing pale as they forget to even breathe. I wondered what they did as Raina came closer, breaking windows along her path. Did they earnestly try to bring her to her senses by saying something? Did they jump at her, trying to stop her savagery? Or did they run to the staff room after being directed there by the teachers? Probably none of those. In the face of that blood-curdling sight of Raina besting window after window, undoubtedly all they could do was silently clear a path for her. Dumbfounded, just clearing the path for Raina to continue. It was far too violent an act for them to seek refuge by looking the other way. It's not to say that they were looking the other way. They were doing the only thing they could do to protect themselves. If they had done something differently from the rest, they may have suddenly found themselves as Raina's new target. What would Raina have done to whoever attracted their attention? The answer was obvious. She would have undoubtedly acted according to her whims. Meaning I would be the next window. Raina staring into my eyes, shards of glass crunching and crackling underfoot as she drew closer. I was also drawn into her eyes, paralyzed. Oh boy. I hate that. Then Raina struck me with the bat over and over again, I was one of those windows. I crouched down onto the floor, desperately protecting my head. Raina didn't care whether it was my head or my back. Zealously, she hit me again and again. of expression was she making as she was doing this over and over again? I peered up to see. Her expression was so indifferent it was completely unnerving. It's because no matter how many times she struck me, it didn't make as pleasant a sound as the other windows. She struck me continuously, over and over again. The sound Raina wanted didn't come out. Our classmates standing around didn't try to stop her. They didn't want to be the next window. Somebody saved me, turning a blind eye unless we're hanging out. But of course, everybody in class scrambled to obtain the highest standardized test scores. They gained nothing from staying at cram school tryhard like me. Eventually, there would be a faint sound, similar to when you crack open a walnut. Some sort of reddish-black spray would shoot out. Anyway, it wasn't that Raina momentarily lost herself in her anger. After forcing myself to breathe and calming down my heart, I recalled what Oishi-san told me. In the counselor's medical report, he recorded all of the conversations he had with Raina-san. It shows up. Quite a bit at that. What does? She mentioned the word Oyashiro-sama. Following that, Raina was suspended and had regular examinations at the hospital. Then, as Raina was undergoing counseling, she said it over and over. Oyashiro-sama. Seems that the Oyashiro-sama she spoke of was like a ghost appearing in her house every night, standing over her pillow looking down at her. That was only a piece of the conversation, so I still couldn't see the big picture, but it was by no means a happy little conversation. Then what Raina did, was she saying that ghastly incident was a result of her being possessed by Oyashiro-sama? Up until now, I didn't want to believe in Oyashiro-sama's curse. That's why I wanted to say the mysterious deaths each year happened because of some sort of conspiracy. Every time I talked with Oishi-san, I was more certain that the deaths were the work of men and not of some curse. Except if it was people perpetrating the incidents, my friends were somehow deeply connected. If I refused to believe that the curse was real, then I would have to believe that those who acted the kindest to me were deeply involved in the incidents. Why? How? For what reason? Was Raina? Was everybody? It was much more painful and troublesome than accepting that it was just Oyashiro's curse. In the aftermath, Raina had admitted to her doctor that it was because she was possessed by Oyashiro-sama. Felt a strange sense of relief from that. So that's how it was. There wasn't a second side to Raina. She did that because she was possessed by something strange like Oyashiro-sama. It wasn't Raina's fault. Oyashiro-sama was the one to blame. I knew. This was all backwards. Refusing to believe there was a curse, I wanted there to be a human perpetrator. Now that my close friends were the ones under suspicion, I changed my beliefs at my own convenience, saying it was Oyashiro-sama's curse to blame. Which was the better choice? Accepting that Oyashiro-sama's curse exists, or that Raina and the rest of them were deeply involved in the string of murderous deaths? I didn't want to think about it. If I just didn't think about it, I'd be able to continue the same as always. I wanted to believe that, but that was no longer possible. I had received their message. It was pathetic of me to try and bend the meaning to my own convenience. Regardless of my opponent being a human or a curse, I won't let it kill me. As if I would just bend over and give in, for no good reason at all. Keichi-kun? You've been making a really weird face. Why, I wonder. Inhaling sharply upon hearing Raina's voice, I came back to my senses. Before I had realized that we were already at the entrance. Whew. This is intense. Shaking my head a few times, I exorcised all those terrifying thoughts. No matter how you looked at it, there's no way Raina could have done such terrible things. It's like I was trying to placate myself. As I slid the door open, a blackboard eraser loaded with chalk dropped onto my head the moment I stepped into the classroom. The chalk dust went into my eyes, inducing a brief moment of agony. Oh ho ho, how befitting for the truant Keichi-san. Good morning, the both of you, Keiichi and Raina. Good morning, Satoko-chan, Rika-chan. Not quite in the mood for it. I didn't really react to Satoko's trap. Yeah, the fact that there's no, happy-go-lucky theme song in the school area, which is what's, supposed to be normal, is weird. Just hearing the Higurashi crying, that's weird. Really. Sadoko braced herself as it passed by, expecting me to attack her. She seemed a bit disappointed as I simply walked by silently. But that just shows you, because the music kind of goes along with Keiichi's mental state, and it just kind of shows you, like, what he's feeling right now, which is, like, all he can hear is just the cicadas crying and just not much else. He's just, like, so wrapped up in everything and what he should do. What is this? How discouraging indeed. Keiichi doesn't seem back to his usual self yet. Yeah, take it easy on him for today, okay? Suddenly there was a slap down on my shoulder. It hurt a bit. Hey, Kei-chan, did you get enough rest? It was Mion. My mind was full with the stuff about Reina, but Mion was also a party of interest. Remember, Keiichi, that hawkish gauge from yesterday? Yeah, morning. What's with the unenergetic greeting? Did you eat the mochi I brought you? Because I ate them, I'm like this. Those words were itching to be blurted out. I really just didn't have the appetite. I ate a few, but quite a lot were left over. Huh? What about the homework? Do you have an answer for which one Reina's? I can't believe you forget your homework, Keiichi-kun. Ah ha ha. Sheesh, then we can't help it. Time for your penalty. Me-he-he-he. Pushing a lurid smile, Mion returned to her seat. There was nothing from our exchanges that would cause our classmates to suspect anything was amiss, but of course, anyone listening to our conversation up until this morning wouldn't see anything suspicious. Sorry. That was why it was so frightening. They acted in a way that, regardless of whatever happened to Keiichi Maebara, no one would ever suspect them. That fact had me terrified. Soon the teacher came, and she asked how I felt and took attendance. Another dull, ordinary day began. Yep. The days keep going on, but things are getting weirder and weirder as they go. Crazy. At Higurashi, keep crying. The free study period was a convenient time to consider where I stood. I gently closed my eyes and pondered the ridiculous position I was in right now. First of all, what I shouldn't forget was how dangerous of a situation I was in. I had fallen out of favor with them. After interacting with Oishi-san multiple times, I could see it as I was getting closer to the heart of the matter. The warning yesterday with the mochi was a good indicator of that. No, calling it a warning was just my own habit of understanding things. Probably had no meaning behind stunting my progress and buying themselves some time. Until they had a method of completely erasing me. They were just biding their time. Even though they were keeping me under their thumb with threats, it didn't change the fact that I knew too much. The chilling sensation on my desk made me recall Satoshi Hojo, the boy who was using this seat until last year when he disappeared. Was he also similar to me? Did he learn something he shouldn't have and was erased? Damn, I wouldn't let them get rid of me so easily. Never. But were they really trying to kill me? I've had these contradictory feelings for a while now. Even though I suspected them, I felt I had to cover for them. With all of their suspicious behavior, a morning like this just made it all seem like an elaborate hoax. No, that's just what I want to believe. Doubting my friends, covering for them? My life was in danger. Or was it? Actually, I was debating the wrong point. Given my current situation, those points were something that should have been deliberated on a long time ago. But really, Reina and the rest of them, were they actually aiming to kill me? The little voice inside me continued to torment me with these unresolved trains of thought. Are you an idiot, Keiichi Maebara? The answer should be obvious. But maybe that sewing needle might have just been an accident, right? How could you screw up and drop a sewing needle into a piece of mochi? The benefit of the doubt can only go so far. Both Reina and Mion had acted and behaved suspiciously. Maybe it was all some sort of misunderstanding. What kind of misunderstanding? It wasn't just suspicious, it was outright ludicrous, right? Reina just corrected me for lying, and Mion only asked me about what I had for lunch. Reina was standing outside our door eavesdropping for a good hour, you know. She was probably just waiting for my phone call to end. For a whole hour outside your room? Is it normal to go home afterwards without saying anything? You heard from Oishi-san, didn't you? About what Reina did at her former school? But at the hospital, she said it was Oyashira's fault. She... Cut it out, Keiichi Maebara. Don't you realize they're out to kill you? Huh? I inadvertently blurted those words out aloud. Hearing myself say that so directly left me dumbfounded for a few moments. Afterwards, I had to look around to check if anyone else had heard it. My little soliloquy cut a little too close to the truth. Even though I could feel the murderous intent from Rain and the others, part of me somewhere was still trying to deny that. This late in the game, such hesitation could be fatal. I knew that. But I was just your average student, a man living his normal, ordinary life. Do you think I could suddenly believe that my friends, who I had been happily laughing together with until last Sunday, now intended to kill me? Right? You're too soft, Keiichi. This time I remember to keep my voice down so only I could hear it. There was only one thing I now understood. I was too soft. I didn't completely understand how dangerous Reina and the rest of them were. No, I wasn't trying to understand. I was too soft for not listening to Oishi-san when he was earnestly showing me the heart of the matter. I didn't listen because I was too busy pretending to be dejected. I didn't comprehend it. I was just running away. I didn't comprehend it, so nobody had any notion to try to kill me. I needed to get rid of such naive thoughts. As I made that revolution, I heard the bell signaling the end of class. So soon. The day was already over. I didn't recall eating lunch or doing anything in class. My friends were putting their desks together to prepare in preparation for club activities. Not long, though, I'd probably have happily jumped into that circle. My, Keiichi-san, how rude of you to even think about leaving. The way Satoko spoke was so typical and familiar, it almost physically hurt. Keiichi-san, is today not a good day, I wonder? We were not going to win big together. And we were going to win big together, how... Seeing Reina's expression, which said she was really looking forward to today, was hard to take. Hey, Keiichi, maybe Oishi-san is just some enormous jerk trying to separate me from the others by lying to me. Slap. Trying to expunge such weak-minded thinking, I slapped myself in the face. Keiichi-kun? Yeah, was Reina really trying to kill me? I wish someone would tell me if it was a hoax. I didn't care if it was actually was one or not. I just wanted someone to say it was. Gah, yet another weak-willed thought. How did I ever become this naive? Are you alright? Does your head hurt? Apparently that was how my inner dilemma appeared to Reina. You're pale. Can you make it home by yourself? Maybe I should accompany you home, I wonder. Nah, it's okay. Sorry. I can get home by myself. Just have the meeting without me. Upon hearing that I wasn't going to participate in the club meeting, Mion pouted unhappily. Since Kei-chan was so bent on a revenge match, we were even going to play the deduction game from before, too. Keiichi-san doesn't have the burning desire for a rematch? How pathetic. I wouldn't fall for some dumb taunt. Without even a real retort, I just grabbed my bag and was about to get up. Someone's hand perched itself gently on my head. Oh, Keiichi-san doesn't seem to be well. How very unfortunate. It was Rika-chan. She was stretched up as far as she could, doing her best to pat my head with her petite hand. Yeah, Satoko and Rika haven't done anything really suspicious yet. It felt so nice, which made things even harder. Sorry, everybody. See you. That's all I said as I quickly left the classroom. They said something to me as I was leaving, but I couldn't make it out. I managed to make all the way to the entrance in that state of mind, took out my shoes, put them on, and went forward. Harden that heart, Keiichi Maebara. They were, for some unfathomable reason, trying to kill me. They were plotting something dubious, watching my every move, but I couldn't hate them. Because weren't they my friends? Part of me lamented my naivety, while another part lamented the fact that I had lost something important by lamenting over it in the first place. Felt like my consciousness was being ripped apart from my body. Is this what Oyashiro-sama's curse was like? Then it was just too harsh. Hey, Oyashiro-sama. I was wrong for not believing in your curse, but I believed in it now, completely. Your curse does exist, so seriously, give me a break. I beg you, come on. I don't think it's gonna be that easy, buddy. Dinner was unusually bland. Had no flavor or aroma. The miso soup that normally tantalized my appetite instead tasted nothing but boiled water. Dad was eating with us that night. It was a rare occurrence in this household. When he got into his work, he ate and slept on his own schedule. My dad never cared about the time. So my dad was at the dinner table, it either meant he had just reached a good point to take a break, or he was in a slump. So yeah, he just doesn't understand the motivation creators have. Your partnership was just a verbal agreement, wasn't it? It's so hard to agree on things, why not just end it? I feel like it's an industry with a lot of back scratching, but when it gets in the way of business, I wasn't able to pick out much of my mom and dad's conversation, but I could tell it wasn't a very pleasant topic. That, of course, made the disgusting food even less appealing. Staring listlessly at the exchange between my parents, my mind wandered off to the same thought process I had going all day long. Friends closer to me, no, they used to be friends, but I could no longer trust them. Right now, I was greatly lacking in allies. People I trusted, people I could depend on when push came to shove, they were something I just didn't have. Having just one ally would have been incredibly reassuring in the current hopeless situation I was in. I put down my chopsticks and looked over at my parents, who were still talking about work. The first course of action that came to mind was to tell my parents everything. Certainly there wasn't a single person from Hinamizawa I could trust 100%. That meant the only people I could trust were my parents. But if I told them everything that happened up until now, would they understand? Reina, for example. That neighborly Reina, who was so diligent in looking after me, came to get me every day, sometimes brought over a share of what she made. How could I explain that she wanted to kill me? No matter how I explained it, it would probably be difficult for anybody to comprehend. My somewhat eccentric dad would probably wouldn't understand. My high-strung mom would probably drag me off to a psychiatrist in the blink of an eye. Sadly, that was the amount of trust that existed in our relationship. Even if they did come to understand, what could they possibly do? Unless they could uncover the truth, they wouldn't be able to protect me. No, by informing them of these unnecessary things, I'd be putting my parents in danger as well. Considering that the victims in the past incidents were often married couples, I couldn't even joke about it. For the entire Maybara family to have an accident or to just vanish into thin air was easily possible in Hinamizawa. What was important here was that knowing something unnecessary put you in danger. The most unsettling question was, how did they even know that I knew? As long as they didn't know, my parents might not fall victim. That was one way to think about it, I guess. At least it was like that in my case. After I found out, things started becoming odd. In other words, it meant the following. As long as my parents didn't know anything, nothing would happen to them. As long as my parents were here, this house would be a safe haven for them. I knew these were just assumptions based on conjecture on top of conjecture. Wanting this house to be a safe haven, that was the pinnacle of my weak-willed method of thinking. I had to concede that it was not completely safe. It was only safer than the outside. I knew that I couldn't rely on my parents. No, I couldn't risk getting my parents involved. That the only person who could be an ally would be Oishi-san. Him and him alone. He was the only person who understood the situation I was in. He didn't care so much about my safety, but he was without a doubt passionate about solving this case. It was a bit frustrating. Oishi-san was basically the whole reason I was in this mess. Now to get out of it, I had to rely on him. Meaning, it was all going according to his devices. It was just my job to look appetizing while bobbing in the waves as bait. Then, when the fish started gathering around, Oishi-san would pull up the big haul. It was slightly infuriating, but even I thought it was the best course of action. So then what should I do? Patience was the first rule of fishing. Just keep waiting until the fish actually bites. But I wasn't simply bait. There were lots of ways for me to struggle before being devoured. When they struck, I needed to somehow dodge just enough and tag out to Oishi-san. No question, it was going to be hard. The timing to bring Oishi-san in would be difficult. He was in the city, not Hinamizawa, so if I phoned him in my moment of need, it would take him about 30 minutes to reach me. So I needed to run away for those 30 minutes. For example, if we set up a rendezvous point for dire situations or something, I just have to hide out there until Oishi-san arrived. Okay, I can almost see it now. I was still being chased around in the dark by boogeymen, but now I knew which way to go. I would never have imagined this would be so reassuring. Oh yeah, it would probably be best if I had a concealed weapon for them, for when things got rough. Typically that would call for a switchblade, but that wasn't too reassuring for combat. Since it was recognized as a weapon by the public, that also wasn't good. Really, when the time comes, a long weapon like a bat would work in my favor. I remember there was a metal bat at school. I could be confident with that when push came to shove. I pretended I was practicing my swing. It would be suspicious for me to always carry it around. I could go to school early tomorrow and secure it. Just possessing a weapon may be enough to deter them. Also, one more thing. Insurance. It could be something like a note or memo. I could write down everything that's happened as a sort of journal. In case I suddenly vanished, the journal would be left behind. With my journal in his possession, Oishi-san should be able to avenge my death. Left my parents engrossed in their conversation about work and went back to my room. I tore out a piece of paper from my notebook and made my way to my desk. Last time I wrote a journal was for summer homework in elementary school. Yeah, I used to keep a journal when I was really young. And I. Oh, sorry, I dropped my mouse. Um, I did not keep up with it very well. I was always really lazy about it, and I would, write in it like once a day, and then it started being every couple of days, and every couple of weeks, and then I just stopped writing in it eventually. But it helped me try to figure things out by writing it out. But ultimately, I just stopped keeping a journal, mostly because it was just boring to me. It was like my life is so boring. Why would I want to read about it? Why would I even go back? I would never go back or have the time to go back and read it. So like, why would I keep one? But I mean, in his situation, it would be very helpful because if somebody wanted to know what was going on, they have a first person account. Did I miss something? Okay, no, I didn't. In the off chance something bad happened, the police could use my diary as a lead, so I should only write down the facts. How should I start? Jotted down my thoughts as they came. I, Keichi Maibara, am in fear for my life. Made me laugh nervously. It was a line that showed up often in detective stories. I never even dreamed that I would be in the type of situation where I'd write it myself. I did not know why they are after my life. Rain and the others were suspicious, but I had no proof. That's why I couldn't write anything more. I laughed wryly at myself for writing such a passage draped in mystery. Would the police be able to get the hint from reading this enigmatic passage? I could only pray that they would. What I prayed for the most, though, was that this journal never needed to play its part. Here, I laughed nervously. It was too simple, so I wrote down one more line I just thought of. The only thing I do know is that it has to do with Oyashiro-sama's curse. Was that too much? I probably shouldn't write more than that. If I wrote any more, then it would seem like I was just delusional. In order to appear to the reader that the person who had written this was of sound mind, I chose not to write anything else at that point. I just needed to add more as I learned more about the truth. I folded the paper and thought about a place to hide it. By hiding it somewhere obvious, there was the chance that they would uncover it instead. On the other hand, if it was in too obscure of a location, there was a risk of nobody finding it at all. In the end, I decided to take the clock off my wall and stick my folded note on the back of it with scotch tape. After that, I put the clock back in its normal position. Yeah, it didn't look like anything was hidden behind it. Now I need to set it up such that if anything happens to me, my parents could find it. I looked at it from countless different angles until I was satisfied as I made my way downstairs. My parents were still talking about work. Didn't look it was a good time. It was going to end anytime soon, so I cut in. Sorry to interrupt. I have something I want to talk to you about. Never started off a conversation but like that before, so my parents were both startled. They stopped talking and turned towards me. What is it, Keiichi? I have a favor to ask of you. Please listen. Just in case, yeah? If it's not urgent, can we do this later? Right now, Mommy and Daddy have something urgent they're talking about. I didn't think their talk was more urgent than mine. In any case, I stated my request. Just in case, okay? If I die. Both of my parents' eyes went as wide as saucers. If I die, I want you to put the clock on my wall in my coffin. If they did that, then they'd probably find it. My memoir. Both my parents remained wide-eyed, not moving an inch. I couldn't blame them. I made that clock in shop class and I really like it. So, please. What's the matter, Keiichi? Something happened? Mom was finally able to ask me with a questioning gaze. Of course, this was a normal response for when someone's son suddenly talked about a subject like this. I felt bad about making them worry, but right now I just wanted them to think about the clock in my room. The awkward mood leaving the room in silence, I decided to go back up to my room. I want to get to school early tomorrow, so I'm going to bed. Good night. Saying only that, I left the living room. That'd be really stupid weird. I needed to get to school early tomorrow to secure that bat. I should make today the last day I went to school with Reina. As I climbed the stairs, I heard my mom call my name, but I pretended not to hear her. It wasn't something I could talk about with my parents. If I talked about it, it would only make things more dangerous. The fight that had begun was mine and mine alone. I couldn't rely on anybody. I wouldn't be killed, not when I still knew nothing. Interesting. Very interesting. So it's going to be this huge thing about trying to unravel the truth. All the while, like, being scared for your life, really. Keichi-kun's been feeling down lately. Maybe he's in a bad mood. I wonder. Maybe he's on his period. Me-chan, that's gross. What do you think? Don't know. Could be that Kei-chan, maybe. I don't know. That day Kei-chan was in that car talking to some tubby middle-aged guy, right? Yeah, no mistake. That Oishi, you probably fed him something fishy. He was so serious, Keiichi-kun's face was so pale. You see, you might not know this, but that's actually the messenger of Oyashiro-sama. What? Huh? What do you mean? Whenever he shows up, someone is demoned away. No lie. Oh? Is that so? The year before last, when Rika-chan's mom drowned, right? Oh, damn. Rika's mom drowned. That's right, because the priest and his wife, which was her parents, died. Wow. Right before that, she was visited by Oishi. Now that you mention it, it happened before Satoshi-kun transferred out. Transferred? Ahaha, you're so sweet, Reina. So this time he's appeared before Keiichi-kun. So Keiichi-kun is going to get demoned away too? An empty silence hung in the air, then it was suddenly interrupted by loud laughter. Huh. Weird. Interesting. Okay, so things are getting really interesting. I have a feeling that only a couple more chapters are left. It's starting to get to that point where, like, he's figuring things out, and it's going to come to a, like, some sort of, what's the word? I can't think of it right now. Climax. Yeah, that's the word. It's going to come to some sort of a climax with, everything that's going on. He's going to make a decision, and it's going to take a sharp turn. And also, there are 7 other chapters besides this one still I have to get through. So, and I know there's, like, different arcs and stuff, and they're all kind of different, and it's really weird. But, so it doesn't have to, like, answer everything right now. In fact, I don't think it answers everything up until, like, towards the end. Really everything. So but it is going to come to, like, a climax and then, like, have some sort of an ending probably towards the end of the chapter. And then it continues on in chapter 2 with maybe a different arc. I'm not sure if each, like, chapter is a different arc or if, like, they're linked, I know they're all linked together, but, like, the different arcs are kind of separated. I don't know. But they all are linked together, and then there's multiple different arcs as you go, but you're supposed to, read them all in order, or play them all in order, and then get to, by the end, you should have pretty much all the information going on, which is interesting, because we're slowly picking up little pieces, like little tendrils, and we're, like, pulling at that little thread, like, trying to unravel all of this, and it's just crazy. But I think we're almost done, like, with this chapter. And when we're done with this chapter, I will be, like, ecstatic. And that will also give me, like, an idea of how long each chapter is, because there are 7 more chapters. Now, one of them I know for sure is a little bit shorter. But the rest of them are, from what I've heard, are pretty much the same length, if not just a little bit longer. So, I've heard the chapter 1 is actually one of the more longer ones, but there are some that I think are longer than this one. So, we'll see. Regardless, I'm just going to keep going till I finish it. I want to say there's probably going to be 2 more chapters, and then we're going to hit an ending here. So, I'm not sure though. Don't quote me on that. So, thank you everybody so much for watching it. I will pick up next week with a new chapter of Higurashi. Bye!